Where are we?
Hello and welcome back to episode 6 of Deep Dark Tunnel. I'm Molly Trammell and I'm here with Otter and Danny.
Hello.
Yeah, what's up? What's up?
Otter and Danny are collaborators. The recent project is going to come out, which is an album on November 26th called What We Are All Going Through. So can you guys tell me, what is the dynamic of your collaboration?
I would say that I am the idea guy, as Danny puts it. I kind of sit here in this room, my bedroom in Wicker Park, and I just kind of tinker away with samples and different things that people have given to me, and I just kind of mash up all of these different sounds into a blender, and then I write something that is from the heart, I sing it, and then I send it to Danny, and Danny does his thing.
Yeah.
What is Danny's thing?
I'd say my thing is just like song building. Most of the stems that I get from Ryan, which he lives right down the hall, so like I can go over and like make sure he's doing it right or give input in like the beginning stages, but when it really comes down to it, it's really just song building that I'm doing and making sure it's like mixed well and all like the music information is produced correctly. Brian is a really great producer and usually doesn't give himself enough credit, but there are some things where I have to just organize his ideas a little bit. So he's the idea guy and I'm the organizer, and then usually by that time it'll be ready to release. So
What I've noticed about your music is that it's very well put together. Like, there's a lot of percussive elements as well as just sort of like, I call them rabbit holes, where it's like vocal samples, but like it alludes to like a motif from a previous part of your song. Would you consider you guys to be like perfectionists in that aspect?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, especially both of us production-wise. Like, I want to make sure that every little detail makes sense and sounds great. And like, I'll sit there, and I know Danny does the same. We both will sit there and we'll mull over something for like 15 minutes. We'll swap it, we'll change it, and then another 15 minutes later, we'll go back. And then we'll proceed to do that for like hours and days.
right, definitely. And it kind of, a lot of the stuff that Brian will give me, I'd love to accentuate the small details because there's such like cool little things that sometimes I don't even think Brian remembers him doing.
Yeah, I definitely my process is like, I'll just do it. And I was telling Danny, like, especially when it comes to like the backup vocals and like my weird like chopped vocals, I just do it. Like, I don't even like pay attention anymore to like see if it's like the way I want it first, because like I want it to come from some form of emotion still. It's no different than writing or singing. So when I do a chop, it's just random like transient slices, and I'll go in Ableton and just chop out random and move it around. And then sometimes I'll do something and then I'll forget it's like in the mix because it's so muddy. And I'll send it to Danny and I'll be like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'll be like, dude, you made that. Yeah.
Going back to your album, what is the concept of the title, What We Are All Going Through?
It started about a year ago when I was kind of just doodling around on my little keyboard in the dorms, matter of fact, and
the University Center.
And it was like, it was like right when I first moved to Chicago, and we had just come off the pandemic, and I was just beyond stressed and like just emotional. And I was just, a lot of my music at the time, I was writing about like what everyone was going through in the pandemic, and then that little piano piece just kind of just felt like it represented that to me. So I titled the track What We're All Going Through, and then Danny was like, that's so sick, that's the name of the album. We hadn't even like started an album yet. It was like, but Danny like knew that was gonna be the name of the album.
A good thing to note about that is Brian and I lived across from each other in the dorms, and like the second day that he moved in, and then the day after, like we hung out and immediately made music. Like, that's it. Like I went over and we started making beats, and like everything spiraled from there.
So you would find it easy to work with each other opposed to working alone?
Yes and no. It's weird. I feel like that might be a weird answer, but it's like, Danny, I've even offered to help mix stuff before, and Danny's like, absolutely not. Like, no, like, no. Like, there's process. It's a whole process, and like we both have to do our parts. Like, I'm at a point now where it's like, when I write, I like to just be in my own space. It could be like super late at night, and like I just have a spark of an idea, and I'm just like, oh, I gotta write that down. Or I'll be on the plane, and I'm like, oh, I gotta write that down. And when I'm singing and when I'm coming up with the ideas in my little room right here, it's like Danny's hardly here anymore. It's probably just because we got busy. We used to write more together. But I also like really enjoy that. It kind of like Danny gives me the space outside of my room to come to that conclusion, and my girlfriend come to the conclusions I need for my music, and then I do it alone in here.
Right.
But then we do. And then like we make every other decision together, basically.
Right. And especially like once like the main ideas are recorded, I will like come to Brian's room and be like, "Yo, this is cool. We should redo this part." Like just like really fleshing it out is like the main part of like what I do.
So we also talked about aesthetics, and what I liked is usually when I say aesthetics, I like reference visual aesthetics, but you guys added the sonic aesthetic, which is the sound of your music. So how would you describe the sonic aesthetic of your music you make together?
I would say it's electronic blended with acoustic, and that was kind of the dream from the beginning of our little music careers. Was we want to make 90s, 2000s pop rock, indie rock that is totally infused by like
hi-fi, electronic, weird stuff. Like Brian and I, we grew up like totally opposite music influences.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of brings the acoustic and the electronic together, because I was like so into I grew up on like R&B soul, like old like 60s, 70s, and like pop punk. My brother, like I was so into pop punk, and then Brian was like EDM and like Japanese like folk and stuff,
and J-pop.
So
J-pop,
right,
all the
exactly.
way.
So like all those things combined are all like so important to our music.
Brian, I remember you told me that you were like playing a video game and you sampled something in your song. What game was that?
Okay, so in the song Pollen on the new album, what we're all going through, I sample this little kind of like kawaii voice thing that is in the video game Panel de Pone from 1995. It's like kind of the OG Candy Crush game from Japan, and my girlfriend and I play it like all the time. So a lot of the music is about my girlfriend and like just like the hardship of having a long distance relationship. So Pollen is just this like really cute kind of like instrumental, like kind of like upbeat song on the album. And I'd made the whole thing, and I was like, you know what would sound great is that little Panel de Pone vocal chop. So I like took it, and then I'd like kind of just like cut it up, and it's kind of the chorus of the song, really. So it's one of my favorite little things on the whole album.
Right.
But,
yeah. And there's little things like that on like across the whole album, just like little weird samples that we find just like either through our daily life or like on YouTube or something like that. So
yeah, and that sort of adds to the sonic aesthetic of it in the fact that you guys are perfectionists. You know, you make sure to like fill in every real estate with those samples, and that is genius, I would say.
Definitely.
How would
Thank
you
you.
describe your aesthetic like visually?
You even described it before this as chromatic, and I really like that. So I'm gonna steal it. I'm gonna steal it as in, if I could put a color on the latest single, Wishing Star, it would be like gray, silvery, chromatic. And the reason why I like that is my girlfriend was like one day going around telling everyone in the apartment like what their moods were depending on the day. Like most people were like usually just like two different colors. You know, they would swap between the two depending on the day. And because of like how much my mood swings, she was like, you're just silver or gold. You're like reflective. And I really liked that, because I was like, I just reflect whatever mood is around me, or like whatever is like bringing my mood up or down. And so if I had to put like a color on my music, it would be chromatic. I really like that. But then like visually, Danny and I are super inspired by like anime and like old like weird like visuals and like kind of trippy visuals, I guess. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say, Danny.
Just like super analog stuff we're so obsessed with. We went to Porter Robinson is like a huge influence for us. We went to his concert, and like his visuals are just insane, and like just mash up everything that we've been talking about into one, and like that's so inspiring for us. So yeah.
Well, that concludes our 10 minutes of interview. Thank you so much for being on Deep Dark Tunnel, episode number 6. You can listen to Otter and Danny's record, which is coming out on November 26th. Do you guys have any social medias or anything where people can find you?
Yeah, I'm Brian_Kitchell on Instagram. It's the sort of official Otter Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah, my Instagram is also just Danny Patt, PATT _. And all our music is on every streaming service. The album will be everywhere. Yeah, thank you for having us. This is super fun.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you guys so
sure.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're listening to Deep Dark Tunnel Diaries, and this is Match Made in Heaven by Otter and Danny. We're in the Deep Dark Tunnel.
Thanks so much. I don't think like I used to. I'm trusting myself. Life comes in. There's a match made in heaven, but there's happiness in hell. So I'll trust my feelings more than ever before. And now that I may be bleeding, our spark isn't needing. I tremble to my core. Recall a better time or hope for our new future. You guess you shine a light. I came for you. Your wish is sparkling. You say I listen. I know I understand. Let's in the distance. Fighting the edge to give in. No way, I thought this couldn't be it. Hey, yeah, look at where we turned out. Right now, I couldn't be more in love. It's about time that I come out. About time when tell me if it's not now. That summer couldn't act dumber. Like who really could see? It was only. I know it was only you. If it's you that I'm looking for, I've got the key and I'm knocking at your door. Thanks so much. I don't think like I used to. I'm trusting myself. Life comes in. There's a match made in heaven, but there's happiness in hell.
I'm Molly Trammell, and you're listening to Deep Dark Tunnel Diaries. That was Match Made in Heaven by Otter and Danny. You could find Match Made in Heaven on all services where streaming is available. Are you an artist who wants to be featured on Deep Dark Tunnel Diaries? Follow us on Instagram at Deep Dark Tunnel Radio for more information.
Below the city lies a labyrinth of ancient tunnels in mass grey.